frankly. And I wanted to go there because I wanted to learn. I didn't care whether it was a top place for people in local government. I just wanted to, you know, get my hands dirty in the nuts and bolts of how you turn around a government.
Hey, you guys, welcome back into another edition here at the Core with Danielle J. Martin. I'm super excited to continue our series where we're sitting down with local leaders across Kansas. It's an opportunity for all of us to dive into their leadership journey, challenges that they face, and how they manage along the way. Today, I'm excited to introduce you to an individual that many of you are familiar with. Some may refer to him as a politician, American businessman, or some may refer to him as our Kansas Secretary of Commerce. Others may call him our Lieutenant Governor of Kansas. But today, I want to introduce you to David Toland. Lieutenant Governor, thank you so much for your time today. This may not be a typical interview for you, so thank you so much for spending your time here with us. Many people know you in the community, and as you're, self-facing and front-facing and many of the things that you do, let's kind of take a step back and get to know you as a person yourself, as David. Kind of talk to me about your favorite memory as a childhood. Let's start there.
Okay, well, and Danielle, thank you so much for having me on, and thanks especially for calling me David instead of using titles. I prefer that. So, favorite memory from childhood, I had a really idyllic childhood growing up in Southeast Kansas, in Iola, and we were able to have a lot of just freedom and flexibility. We were what you would now call free-range kids, but what was just, in my mind, a normal childhood of, taking off in the morning on your bike and show up and get lunch and then spend the rest of the day just, roaming around on your bicycle, playing down at the creek, doing all the things that I think are part of a good, healthy childhood. So I don't know that I would pick out one thing, but I do feel fortunate to have been raised by the people that my folks who raised me and in a really caring community.
Now, would you say that you saw yourself in where you are today? And if not, what would that look like?
Oh my gosh, I definitely didn't see myself doing what I'm doing today. Even 6 or 7 years ago, I didn't imagine being here. I grew up wanting to first be a lawyer, like my dad and my grandpa, who were small town lawyers in Iola. And then was in grad school, and I thought I wanted to be a city manager, and got my master's in public administration with an urban policy emphasis. And I've done just about everything but be a city manager. I've worked a lot in public service, but also in the private sector some. And now, of course, I'm at the state level, but the path to getting here was kind of a spaghetti bowl of twists and turns, and it's all been kind of unpredictable.
I would love to dive into that a little bit. Were there any leaders or influential people around you that kind of carried you through the process and where you are today? And if so, who are those people?
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, I've gotten here on the shoulders of a lot of people. Most importantly, my folks who raised me to understand that I have a role to be a member of a community and to give back and to serve. But I've also had a lot of professional mentors that have held me along the way, from my very first job in Reno, Nevada, where I worked for a very demanding, very exacting, but also really caring city manager, a guy named Charles McNeely, and his deputy, Stuart Peters, who were just pounding on me to always be better. And this is when I'm 23 years old and still pretty wet behind the ears. And then I went to DC and got thrown into some really, I guess, challenging environments professionally. I was working in the DC government as one of the mayor's fellows. And this is at a time when the district was not a very well-respected place to be, frankly. And I wanted to go there because I wanted to learn. I didn't care whether it was, it was a top place for people in local government. I just wanted to, you know, get my hands dirty in the nuts and bolts of how you turn around a government and a city. And as I look back on my career, it's working for people like Mayor Williams and Ellen McCarthy, his planning director, and Eric Price, the deputy mayor for economic development, folks that were drawn to the same thing, who are all turnaround artists
Mhm.
that I got to learn from, that has really influenced the types of decisions that I've made professionally on what I want to do, and then how I try to lead our team in being having a sense of urgency about the work,
Mhm.
and having high standards of quality and how we do that work, and trying to break down barriers and make it easier for people to access government services. And so I've had a great fortune to learn from a lot of talented people that have cared about me along the way.
I think that's a beautiful thing to mention. And as we do transition into your professional field, you've been with us for many years, serving as our lieutenant governor, now secretary of commerce as well. And you have grown Kansas to a huge standard that I don't think many of us would see now today. And I would even say myself, coming from Houston, Texas, being here for 5 years, and I've seen the state evolve in so many different ways. And so thank you so much for what you're doing with our just economic development and everything that is changing Kansans as people. And so if you could just name one thing, I know this might be a little difficult, but what is one thing that you would say that you're most proud of? What's one project that you can say that, you know what, like this is the one thing that we put our blood and sweat and tears, and I'm really proud of this thing?
Gosh.
Way to put you on the spot.
Well, it's a great question. I've never been good at coloring within the lines, and so I'm gonna maybe answer this in my own way. I
Okay.
know I'm probably supposed to say
Mhm.
that Panasonic, with a $4 billion investment, 4,000 jobs directly, and several thousand other jobs, and all of the ancillary development that comes with that, that should be the answer.
Okay.
And I'm certainly proud of that, and it's an incredible team effort led by the governor and the president of the Senate and the speaker of the House. Everybody came together as Kansans across parties to make that happen. So there's a lot of pride in that.
Yeah.
The things that I get most excited about, and that I feel like are transformative in ways that are meaningful for me, are when we do a project to get a second floor of a building on a main street in a small town
Mm.
turned into a loft, so that there's a new housing unit in that town, or where we're able to do a grant to save a building and bring it back to life so it's economically viable. And it's just one building in one town in one
Mhm.
of 105 counties, and 500 some cities. But it's those types of projects that I think make economic development real for
Mhm.
folks, and show that things can get better, and that things are changing in really significant ways. And so I take just as much satisfaction in a project that has happened in Noto, for example,
Mhm.
where we've been able to provide some funding to do a mural, or to do or to help save a building and create a new space for a business.
Yeah.
As I do with the Panasonics, or the Big Schwann's project, or Hilmar Cheese building a $700 million facility in Dodge City. Those are all a big deal. And
Mm.
having 9 of the 10 largest economic development projects in Kansas history being done under Governor Kelly's leadership, and this team that's here now,
Yeah.
is cool. But the it's the micro level stuff that I think maybe is what I'll be most proud of when all this work is done.
Okay, I will say you definitely took me by surprise there. I was expecting a little bit more of a professional answer, but I do appreciate you saying that, because there are the things on the micro level that I don't think that many people even see you really are interacting with. And so if you could even shed more light on that, about the challenges that come with that, because people see the bigger projects that you're taking on and they say, this is the work that you do, but it's those micro things that many people aren't paying attention to. So what challenges come with that?
Well, the Department of Commerce is kind of like an iceberg where you can see the tip of it above the water, but then there's this massive organization, all these programs that are under the water, which aren't as prominent and which are still key to making the Kansas economy run. And when we started out, we didn't have much in the way of resources in 2019. This department had been gutted. There were a lot of people that had left. We didn't have nearly the budget we needed to in order to even fulfill the basic functions. And so it's a great thing to have been able to get a combination of federal funds that have flowed to the state, but also new state funds that have flowed to the Department of Commerce to do everything from broadband investments to water and sewer systems to upgrading electrical systems in communities to support new industrial development to our 27 workforce system or workforce partners across the state, 27 Kansas communities. It is it is a highly complex organization because we
Mhm.
have so many things going on. And a lot of times the biggest challenge is just keeping straight the alphabet soup of programs that we have,
Mhm.
and trying to come up with new acronyms. One of our I guess, rules of thumb that we've had is I don't want to name programs just a combination of vowels and consonants. I want them to be words. And
Right.
so, um, we just did the doc program reviews this afternoon. So, doc is digital opportunities for connecting Kansans. We have the barn grant, which is I don't even remember. It's building agritourism, something something. But it's to take old barns
Right.
and convert them into spaces
Mhm.
on on farms that can be used as event spaces or to bring new agritourism to the state and create new economic opportunities. So we have
Yeah.
so many of these now, and when we started out, we had almost none. So
Wow.
the growth has been astronomical, and sometimes that can be a little bit of a challenge to keep up with.
Are you ready to dive into the vibrant world of business in Topeka? Well, look no further than TK Business Magazine. You'll be able to discover the stories of innovative leaders, passionate entrepreneurs, and learn the real journey behind their success. TK Business Magazine is where inspiration meets reality. You can grab a copy today by heading to www.tkmagazine.com. Well, I promise you, I won't have you on here creating any type of acronyms or anything like that. But what I am interested in now, let's getting back to who you are as a person. What would you say is your superpower?
My superpower. I don't know if not everyone would agree that this is my superpower, but I am perpetually dissatisfied with
Okay.
things. I have a hard time finding satisfaction with where we are at any given point.
Mm.
And so, we set 3 times, 4 times, we've set the state record for new economic development. Every year, I want to do more.
Yeah.
And and so I think my superpower is that level of dissatisfaction I have with status quo and
Mhm.
always believing that we can do more, but it's also kind of exhausting for me, and I know it's exhausting for my poor team, which
Mhm.
always steps up and is able to drive us to the next level and to the next heights. I mean, the only way you get anything done is with your team, and I have the best around me.
Where would you say that drive comes from? What's in you that's like, you know what, this is not enough. We can do more. We can exceed and we can excel beyond where we're at. Where does that drive come from?
I think it comes from an understanding of the potential of people and of places and of Kansas.
Yeah.
I see what's possible. I can see it. And the key is you've got to help other people see that and help show the path on how you get from here to there. And and so to me that's really what makes the difference. Can a leader see the future but also
Mm.
get you there? Vision part isn't actually that hard. I
Right.
think for most people there's tons of good ideas out there,
Mm.
but there aren't often the combination of good ideas and people that can execute on that idea. And so I've tried to surround myself with people that can execute and who also share that vision of what's possible for our state and what people can do. And that's made all the difference in my career, in my life.
Would you say it obviously takes a group of people, individuals to get involved in what is honestly evolving and being a part of Kansas? I see that there is over hundreds of agency positions available happening right now. Can you talk a little bit about that and the potential of what it would mean if someone were to get involved in the agency?
I mean, we've got over 700 jobs available in state government right now, which is down about 20% over where we were a couple of years ago. So we're making progress. But the type of people that we're looking for are folks that believe in public service, and particularly folks that believe in public service, but they never really thought of themselves as maybe state government types. And maybe they've been in the private sector and they've learned a lot there, but they want to figure out a way that they can give back professionally. To me, that's often the perfect combination of attributes that makes for top-notch talent, and that's what we need in state government. That's what we need in public service in our country at every level right now. Is people that believe in making services accessible and available, and lifting up the last, the lost, the looked over.
Yeah.
There's a lot of folks like that, and that's one of the key reasons we have the public sector. It's to make sure that we're creating opportunities for everybody. And so a lot of great opportunities to do that, whether you want to help people get their driver's license, or whether you want to bring business to Kansas, or whether you want to make sure that we've got top quality broadband, or
Mhm.
highways or railroads, or you name it, to keeping people healthy and safe. There are a million ways that you can serve. And actually, I think 794 different positions, to be
There
more
is.
precise about it.
There's plenty of opportunity for everyone out here, so thank you for that reminder, and we can definitely put some information below where they're watching this interview. As we come to a close, David, kind of tell me, your time in here, serving on these leadership positions, what's one thing, I know I keep narrowing it back down, but what's one thing that you would say that you wish you would have known earlier in your career?
I wish I would have known to always say yes to new opportunities. I was probably too conservative and risk averse to certain opportunities that came along. And the example I like to give is actually when I was 19, and it was after my freshman year of college. I'd had this idea that I wanted to go and work on a fishing boat in Alaska. And there were all these ads that kind of targeted college kids to go spend summer and make a bunch of money on a fishing boat. And that sounded like adventure. It sounded so dramatically different from any experience I'd had in growing up in Southeast Kansas, in small town. And yet at the same time, I had an opportunity to go back home that summer and work as an assistant manager in the grocery store where I'd carried out groceries in high school. And so I was going to make $7.25 an hour as an assistant manager. And it was a job that I kind of understood, and I thought it'd be a good leadership opportunity for me. And so I wound up doing the safe thing, which was going and working in the grocery store that summer instead of being on the fishing boat in Alaska and having an adventure. I have always regretted that. I think that was the wrong call. Not that I didn't learn things or have a good summer. I had a fine summer, but I always encourage people to do something that's different, to take the risk, to jump out there. And so I think as a result of my regret over not having followed the adventurous path when I was 19, I have generally always done the adventurous thing since. Going to Reno was an adventure. Going to Washington, D.C. when Congress had taken over the district government and trying to turn that thing around, that was an adventure. Going from there to private real estate development in DC was an adventure. Going from Washington DC back to my hometown of Iola was an adventure, and then coming to become the Secretary of Commerce for Governor Kelly, and then also Lieutenant Governor later. That's been an adventure. And so you can't have a specific path or a plan in mind. I forget what the saying is. It's something like, what does God do when you say you've got a plan? He
He
laughs.
laughs. Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of truth to that. And so I just wish I would have known to always take the risk, take the adventure. Most of us have long lives ahead of us, we hope. And there's always time to recover, and you're always going to learn.
As you're talking about adventure and as you're talking about saying yes, what would you say to the people who are potentially on the fence of unsure if they want to get into public policy, if they want to get into legislation? What advice would you give them?
I think people need to really search their souls, search, in their hearts, and make sure that that's what you want to do, and make sure that you're going into it for the right reasons. If you want to get into public service because you want to make people's lives better, that's the right reason. If you want to get into public service because you want to be part of the solution, that's the right reason. If you want to get into public service because you think that somehow this is going to be a slower pace or easier or something, that's not the right reason, because it's not. It's tough. They
Yeah.
call it service for a reason. And so I really encourage folks to make sure that they are doing it for the right reasons, and if they pass that test, then just jump in and do it.
As you are hopefully taking time for yourself, what are the things that you do for fun in your quiet time? What does that look like?
Well, one of the challenges of having two high pressure jobs is there isn't a ton of time for myself. What I've been able to do, though, is, when I'm on a trade mission, I try to take a little bit of time to see places that are off the beaten path. When possible, we're traveling around the state and I see an historic site. Well, we stop and we look at it and we try and take the opportunities as they come to decompress a little bit, to experience the full richness of a place culturally, to talk to people when you're out to dinner in a town. I'm in
Mhm.
Scott City somewhere, and you got a bunch of local folks sitting around. Well, pull up a chair,
Mhm.
ask them what's going on, introduce yourself. I think it's part of how we can kind of heal ourselves as a society. There needs to be more just face-to-face, eyeball-to-eyeball interaction, more people talking. And so I try to do that, and it's good for me, and I think I hope it's good for the people I'm talking to.
Last question for you. You mentioned you are in two high-profile positions. So what does legacy look like to you?
I don't have time to think about legacy. There's only 8 years in this. We have the blessing of a second term. And so I'm already a year and a half into that 4-year term after having completed 4 years in the first term. I feel the clock ticking. I hear the clock ticking every single day. And so I've got a lot of urgency around getting as much done at the highest level of quality and in every place in this state as I can in the remaining 2.5 years in office. And so I'm just going to let the chips fall where they may. I'm going to do the best work I can, and then history can judge what we accomplished in this administration.
Lieutenant Governor Toland, thank you so much for your time. Any last words?
Well, I just want to thank you for having me on, Danielle, and our time in Topeka and
Mhm.
in this in this part of the state is almost identical, because you've been here 5 years, I've been here 5 years, and so I've
Yeah.
appreciated.
What an amazing opportunity to have a moment with our Lieutenant Governor of Kansas. We definitely appreciate David for his time, and I hope that you enjoyed his moment on our series for this month. We're going to continue the conversation with local leaders across Kansas. If you have someone in mind, let us know. In the meantime, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.